Hello everybody, are you ready to make this fun, your absolutely awesome card with me? I cut the papers out of Encore paper from 12 by 12 Cardstock Shop, and I'm using Distress Oxide inks to ink around each shape. And you can use whatever ink you want, stamping pads. I just had recently got these and thought they would be really fun, and the colors worked out great. So anyway, I picked different colors there, the red, the green, the orangish yellow, the brown, and then I'm inking each edges. And I thought it'd be fun to also ink the edge of the top piece that goes on the card. And you may see some glues here and there, but that's when I realized, oh, you know what, I want to change this up a little bit. And I can, because, that's how we get to add our own personality to the cards. So after inking up the edges, then I'm going to glue that piece down. And I really like kind of the rustic kind of look it gives. But I fill the card with the ink, obviously, and make sure all the edges, because you don't want it to pill up. And then lay that down, and I believe it's about 1/4 of an inch spacing that I leave around it. And with this card, you can find the design over on my blog and in the Silhouette Design Store. So anywhere at ToniImlay.com, search it up, and you will find the file. So with that, this is, if you haven't, if you're new here or whatever, if you haven't seen, apples are the theme that I picked for the month of August, with going back to school. And, it's just a great card, general card to make for people and just tell them how much you appreciate them. So I'm putting the apple down right there in the center, and then I have the other 2 apples just offset to the sides. I put a little stem there, and put the little glue, and I put the glue all the way on all of it. And then I decide to ink up the leaves, and I do fast forward just a little bit, so it is sped up just slightly. And I thought, it's kind of nice to do it as a batch, so I ink up all of the leaves together, because may as well, while you're out doing one thing, you may as well get all of it done, right? And then I'm going to ink up the apples with this fun yellow. You don't have to ink up the edges, distress kind of the edges, but I just like the look of it, and it kind of adds dimension when you put it on the card. And like I said, you can put others. You could even use markers and stuff. So here I wanted to add a little more dimension kind of and character to each of the leaves. So I use this little tool that's from Silhouette, and I put the crease down the center, and then I kind of make the veins, so it's kind of mimicking the veins, and then also down the sides. And then I curl up the very end to kind of just like I said, add some character and dimension to the leaves. I end up doing that to all of the leaves. And like I said, when you're doing one thing, hey, let's keep doing it. And then it's easier to put things together. Kind of like the cards. I like to batch cards. I usually like to make a handful of them, 5 or 10 cards of the same one, or, roundabout. And then that way I just have a collection of them to give to people when there's a need. And each of these leaves, you see that I add some of them, I add more of the veins, and some I add less, but obviously depending on the size, and you can do your own characters. You could get a marker, a little pen, and even draw in some of those to emphasize the veins a little bit more. Now we glue on the leaf onto the apple, and you can place it on whatever side you want. Just because I have on the design layout one way, you can change it up and do whatever you want. And then there is this cute little highlight, and I did cut it out of a glitter white cardstock just to kind of add a little, pizzazz. I love glitter, and so if I can add that to my cards, I love it. Now, I also used some foam tape to put on these other two apples, and obviously I didn't add the little highlight yet, but I will. The foam tape to the apples, I think just, pops it up because, like I said, you want dimension, and it's not going to bring it too much. These will still, you'll be able to mail these cards, but if you were that worried, because sometimes the thickness of layered cards, you can obviously skip the foam tape part. And like I mentioned before, you could do a variety of different colors. You could do some printed papers, for your apples. You could do a printed paper for your the sheet behind, either one of the two layers. And I do add this to a A2 size card. So this is basically just the card front that I'm making. And there is my little highlights that I will add. And I do have a list of the papers in my description, so you can find them if you want. And then we're going to add the orange little apple. And I know these apples kind of represent different apples that I like. Of course, I love the red delicious, and the yellow, like golden delicious, and this orangish color. I know it's kind of like an orange apple, but I love the Honey Crisp apples. And anyway, that's kind of what I'm going for here. But you can make apples whatever. Like I said, a cute plaid, or little polka dots. Just use your imagination and do whatever you want. There are cards, right? And I just love personalized cards. It's when you receive a personalized card, something that someone handmade, it just makes it feel even more special. You saw that I added glue all the way on the whole back of that little stem, so I had to end up wiping it off. And then I only add the glue on these leaves just kind of on one end, because I do want that dimension, and it can kind of like, pop up off the card just a little bit. And I'll add, this particular apple has the two leaves, obviously. And I use my Silhouette Cameo 5 Alpha to cut out my papers, and I use the standard setting for like heavy cardstock. I think it says like 80 pound, and each machine is so different. I do bump up the blade depth just a little bit, and but each machine, like I said, you have to do kind of a few little test cuts. That's the best way to know what your machine, if you need to make any adjustments. But just play with it, and the more you do it, the more, you'll know what works and what doesn't. But I'd really love how the Encore paper really cuts. So now we're going to do the vinyl. I decided to choose to do this part out of vinyl. You can see I flipped on a light, because when you're working with vinyl, sometimes, especially the black there, you got to see what it is when you're reading it. And I do speed this up slightly, so it's not as, it is a little bit slower time-wise. This little tool is part of the Silhouette, their new little toolkit that you can get, and you'll find those links in my description also. And it is so handy. really sharp, and just when you're weeding something like this, sometimes you just need to hold a little piece down. And then also you'll see here I pick out the little part of the apostrophe there in the your, and when I cut it, sometimes you have, you know, some sections that cut great, and sometimes you have to recut a section. That's pretty normal in jobs. You know, you guys probably know that, but I will line it up, you know, right. It just, you know, you have to use the vinyl to cut there. So you weed and pick out all the little tiny pieces that obviously you don't want part of. I love this paper transfer tape for most of my vinyl projects. I do love the clear too, but the paper, it's like masking tape. And you can use masking tape. You can even use washi tape if you have really small jobs. But it really is slick, and it doesn't, like, especially when you put it on paper, any vinyl on paper, it's great because it usually doesn't like adhere to the paper. If you leave it on too long, yes, the glue, you know, sticks, you know, but I love watching that, you know, peel off and stay all together. So here I'm going to line it back up, and you can see through it pretty good. So it's just a handy, you know, handy to work with. And I get it from Amazon also. Like I said, I have links there in my description. But and I do trim that down just because then I kind of like know exactly how much room I have to work with when I lay it down. And it doesn't take much. I did cut it out of permanent vinyl, the Watercolor and the 651. I like to do that when I'm going to put that on cards, because removable vinyl, which is the 631, they don't adhere for long because it's not permanent, it's removable. You can put that removable, I would put that on my walls, and on something where you kind of want it really temporary, but permanent works great. And just a note with permanent vinyl, leave it for 24 hours, it really cures, and the glue, you know, sets even better. So I like to rub it in a little better just to kind of really adhere it to the paper. But isn't that adorable? Thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit subscribe and share.